Hello, and thank you for tuning into today's edition of Nequa Connection. I'm your host, Brad, and with me here today, I have Jim Samack. He's a longtime contributor to fire services, and he's been in the field for quite some time. Can you tell us a little bit about how it's changed over the years?
When I first got on, I've been involved in the fire service for 35 years now. When I first got in, our method of dress was hip boots, an outer coat, helmet, and a steel tank. The ensemble today is more or less a fully encapsulated suit, more what I would describe as a snowsuit wearing into an oven with a aluminum tank. A little lighter weight, but our time that's allowed into a fire has been extended. The first steel tanks had a working pressure about 2,000 pounds. Right now, with the aluminum cylinders that we're running, we're 4,500 psi, which gives us about a half hour of working time inside of a fire.
So what is it that you do now in terms of for like helping out for the fire services?
I'm a lieutenant paramedic with Rutland Dundee, which is just north of Elgin. I still run fire engine as a firefighter, and the ambulance is a paramedic, but I'm also a fire investigator with the town, hazardous materials technician, and part of our dive team.
As a fire and investigator, what do you usually what's usually your role when it comes to like fires?
As a fire investigator, the state of Illinois requires a fire chief to make a determination as far as the cause of the fire. Me as a fire investigator for the fire department, I'm tasked with that job of making the determination for the fire chief as far as what caused the fire, how it started, what factors contributed to the combination of either an open flame or a viable heat source coming in contact with the item that first ignited.
What are some of the methods that you guys use to determine how a fire started?
Most of the times we depend on what we call fire patterns, whether or not be a V pattern on the wall. If you have a fire up against the wall, it'll actually form a V as it comes up. It entrains the air around so it comes up as a V. If it's in a corner, it'll be a double V. And we go basically from least burned to most burned, and try and find a heat source combined with the available combustibles in the area that would have led to the cause of the fire.
Do you have like any interesting cases of like situations that you've investigated with fires?
We were actually called for a fire and explosion in a apartment in town, and when we arrived, we noted throughout the apartment that there were probably 8 or 9 bug bombs that were set off. And in talking to the occupant, they never shut the pilots off on the stove. So that, and if you read any pressurized can, it'll say combustible, flammable. Well, 1 can of that per room will do it, but when you combine that much of that flammable vapor in that room, it was a perfect combination with the air and the mixture that once it hit the open pilot light, it basically flashed back and caused the explosion and fire.
Right, and then you also mentioned how you like work in a fire engine.
Mm-hmm.
Back in when you like first started and stuff, did you have to spend a lot of time at the fire station and stuff like that?
Yeah, I was basically working a 24/48 schedule, so a lot of holidays, a lot of birthdays, a lot of family get-togethers. Being the junior man on the fire department, I would have to work, so I missed out on a lot of things. As I came up through the ranks and accumulated more seniority, it afforded me a little bit more time to be able to pick my time off when I wanted to.
So, on average, would you say you spend a lot less time there now than what you used to?
Well, I retired from one, and I basically am working pretty much full time at the other one. So I thought I would have more time, but I'm there a lot of time. I'm covering for some lieutenants that have been hurt and covering open shifts that are available.
What made you want to join fire services?
Actually, I got involved in the fire service more or less. I moved into the town not knowing anybody, and one of my neighbors was a captain on a fire department, and this was basically a volunteer fire department. And my boss at the time was very proactive in the community, and I got involved, became an EMT, and found a niche that I liked and started pursuing it, and been going to classes ever since.
All right, and then another question is, I know that a lot of the times they'll do controlled burnings at like the prairie paths and stuff like that to kind of keep the growth of the prairie kind of down. What would usually be the role of a fire investigator for something like that?
As far as controlled burns, there really isn't much for a fire investigator to look at. On a true set fire, there again, there's certain patterns with wildland fires that I could look at to basically bring myself back to the area of origin and try and determine what ignited the fire.
With a lot of wildfires happening in like California and stuff, what are some of the ways that firefighters go about dealing with those?
That's a whole different avenue for firefighting. The gear is a lot more lightweight, and their role there is basically to cut fire lines in, and they'll actually do back burns. They'll start in an area and actually start a fire along a fire break and burn some of the lighter combustibles that would normally be in the path of that fire to stop the fire at a certain point. And they got actual tankers, the air tankers, and they'll do fire drops with not only water but retardant chemicals.
Occasionally, I have seen and heard stories of fires that like have an unknown cause. What are some ways that like would cause a fire to happen, where it would lead to an unknown cause?
I've actually investigated a few that I have called undetermined, is what we call them, and that could either be that there's so much fire damage that the entire structure is damaged, or that there are so many different items that cannot be ruled out, like fragmented electrical within the area. Could not rule out the use of a plasma cutter to cut steel, a arc welder, including some heavy equipment in the area. When you get an area where you got so many factors that we can't rule out, a lot of times we will call it undetermined.
And then in terms of calling it undetermined, is there like any times where there's like substances that could be used to like make a fire be undetermined?
A lot of times if there's a substance that used, in the last case where I had an undetermined fire, I actually brought the state fire marshal in with their canine dog, which is trained to pick up the odor and the presence of certain substances. And if they hit at a certain point, I will pull a sample from that area and send it to a lab for further analysis of the debris.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks all of you guys for coming out. I've been your host, Brad, for Nequa Connection, and we'll see you guys next time.